Hello, Assalamualaikum, and you're watching Relatable, Sinar Daily's premier show on women issues happening around the globe. Okay, last week we spoke about having more women representation in politics, and we are not done with that issue because there's definitely a lot more to be said. We spoke about the lack of opportunities, societal expectations, insecurity among women themselves, and the lack of systemic and social support that are helping women to pursue their political ambitions. So we're going to dive deep even more into those topics today. And with me, I have three esteemed guests who I'm very excited to introduce. So I'm going to start with the person furthest to me first, who is Dr. Umu Atiyah Ahmad Zakwan, UUM Associate Professor and Campaigner for greater female representation in leadership positions and politics. And we also have Nurul Ashikin Shamsuri, founder of Project Fearless, a project that empowers youth to be more creative, confident and resilient, and she's done a lot of work with women, especially among female youth. So we're going to talk more about that. And beside me is Elma Safina Zaidi, an EXCO with Sarawak Volunteers, an organisation providing Sarawakian youth with a platform to contribute towards nation building and social work. So thank you for spending time with me today and sharing your thoughts on women empowerment. Each of you have done your own respective amazing work on inspiring more women, inspiring a young generation to participate more in politics, in nation building especially. So we're going to go into that later. But before I start asking our great guests questions, I just want to be able to point out a few things that I think would be very important for the discussion today. And that is, in the last few days, political parties contesting in GE15 have started announcing their full or partial list of candidates. For example, PKR announced 72 candidates so far, PAS Kelantan, DAP Pahang and Penang, and Amanah Kedah, some of them. And we're also going to have, for example, other parties like BN, Warisan, and PN, GPS, announcing their candidates today and tomorrow. So I want to look at some of the, and in the list, for example, in the list announced by PKR recently, some incumbent female politicians were dropped. The names are quite well known. For example, Maria Chin Abdullah from Petaling Jaya, Jun Leo Hulu Selangor, Natra Ismail Sekijang, Tan Yikyu Wang Semaju, and DAP's Kashturi Pato Batukawan were either dropped or will not be participating in the coming GE. And I find that, quite a large number of these candidates are women who are not going to be fielded again. So I find it a bit worrying at first. And out of the 72 candidates that PKR announced for federal seats, 13 of them are women, only 13, which is about 18% of their total candidates list, which means that PKR so far has failed to fill 30% female candidates. And I think it's a bit sad for a party in Malaysia's history to have the first and only female president to helm the party in history to not be able to fulfill 30%. DAP, 2 women in Penang, 1 in Pahang so far. Amanah, 7 women out of 54 candidates, also quite low. Muda, 1 female candidate so far. PAS said they're going to field 2 female candidates in Kelantan and 1 female candidate in Perlis. That makes about 20 female candidates out of 222 seats so far. That's 10%. So we need the remaining parties to fill, at least 25. Last GE was 38%. So there's another 28% that needs to be filled, at least. And we hope they can go even further than that. And because today we have a special guest from Sarawak, or representing Sarawak, I would say. I'm putting a lot of pressure on Elma. Sarawak has 31 parliamentary seats, and out of the 31 seats, only 5 are represented by women. And a little bit of history of Sarawak. Sarawak's first female minister was appointed in 1970, Ajibah Abul. After her demise in 1976, she was succeeded by Hafsah Harun. And in the period from 1970 to 1986, Sarawak has only 1 female minister serving. And from 1986 until 2010, there was no female minister at all. And from 2011 onwards, until today, there's only one female minister representing the whole cabinet of Sarawak. And Sarawak demographic, just like the rest of Malaysia, is also 50% women. So you only have one female minister and one assistant female minister representing the whole country. And also just quickly glance to Sabah. According to Sabah Women's Action Resource Group SAWO and the movement Rakyat is Boss, in the 2020 Sabah state election, women comprised not even 10% of the candidate list. There were 43 women fielded and 404 male candidates. Wow. So this is much lower than the national average or other states' average. So Beaufort MP, Datuk Seri Azizah Muhammad Don, she raised concern that poverty is not the only issue faced by women in Sabah. They also face tough challenges in politics. She said she took offense to women being described by her political peers, her male political peers, as mere pelengkap. So I'm trying to trigger everybody here as mere pelengkap, and added that Sabah Serikandi Bersatu is demanding 4 parliament seats. So let's hope for the best that they will get what they demand. And lastly, I just want to say there are also at least 8 new female candidates in this coming GE. Dato' Latifah Mak Yatim, representing Amanah in Sik Kedah. She is the former senior officer of SPRM. Wan Badariah Wan Saad, PAS Mata Air. Lim Hu Ying, the sister of Lim Guan Eng, DAP Tanjung. Sherlina Abdul Rashid, DAP Bukit Bendera. Yang Shafura, DAP Bentong, against possibly Tan Sri Liatong Lai. Cikgu Rahayu Muda in Tanjung Karang against Tan Sri Nur Omar, maybe. Fatin Amalina Fazli, PKR Arau, perhaps against Datuk Sri Syahidan Kasim, or maybe not, we don't know. And Dr. Nuraishah Maidin Abdul Aziz, very interesting, from PKR in Putrajaya, also a highly contested seat. We have Datuk Sri Razi Jidin, the Education Minister, contesting in Putrajaya, and we don't know who BN is going to fill. If it's the previous incumbent, then it's going to be a very, very difficult fight. But what's interesting about Dr. Nuraishah is that she is a scientist and the first candidate in Malaysia's history to be a candidate with spina bifida.
Okay.
So, you know, in a way, I'm rooting for her as well because of the kind of representation that she is going to bring. So, okay, let's go to the questions. Let's go to our guests after I've painted the story so far. So I want to get, okay, I'm going to ask everybody this one question first. So I'm going to start with you, Elma. So what are your initial thoughts on the candidate lineup announced so far? I know that GPS hasn't announced their candidate, but looking at the names that have been listed, 10% women so far, what are your thoughts?
I think like this year is going to be like very interesting, but however, I'm still like patiently waiting because from Sarawak myself, like I'm still like patiently waiting for who are the candidates that will be announced by GPS and all that.
So are you hoping that it's going to be much more than
I was hoping that it's going to be much more than before, because even though the quota has been set to 30%, but I wish to see more
than 30%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Candidates.
So Nurul Ashikin, what about you?
Well, just like Elma, I'm observing actually. I'm observing very closely on the candidate list. We don't have full numbers yet. We got some numbers from Adila, and there will be announcement tonight for Barisan Nasional for announcement of the candidacy. And what I was observing also the lineup from DAP, Amanah, and PKR. Actually, Amanah only have 12.9% from the 57 candidates. And PKR also, they're not fulfilling the 30%. But the sentiment is very strong on the ground for Barisan Nasional, from Barisan Nasional women, that to push for 30%. So I was hoping that the voices of Wanita, MIC, MCA, dan UMNO during the convention Wanita BN was heard, and we'll see some new faces, or we see women, especially women, on the lineup tonight. But if I can be a little bit pessimist here, from the trend, it's difficult.
Okay.
I don't see a lot of shift in mindset yet. So I'm not sure if that is going to happen.
Mindset among who, if you may elaborate?
Among male leaders.
Right.
In giving the way for female candidates. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. So let's see for tonight.
Yeah,
But
let's hope.
based on the trend that I have observed, at least for the past four election cycles, it doesn't change that much. So maybe there's a miracle this year. So
Yeah,
we never
I
know.
think a couple of days ago, Wanita MCA said that they submitted 25 names as candidates to the party leadership. And we're hoping that at least, a substantial number from those names are fielded so that they can at least achieve their quota. So Dr. Umu,
Yes. Okay.
passionately, what do you think?
So I would like to extend what Adida landscaped to us just now, right, with a lot of statistic. I was actually very frustrated to see the numbers. So the first point that I can raise is about numbers. So it's far from 30%, minimum of 30%. And the second one, what is so obvious is that where they put the women to contest, right? So we need to really see if we are really serious to achieve a minimum of 30% in the Dewan Rakyat or in the State Assembly. So the candidate should be placed in a winnable seat.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take an example from the candidate that you mentioned before, right? You talk about Latifah, Latifah from Amanah, who actually being fielded in seat, right? Okay, so parliamentary seat, the incumbent is Ahmad Tarmizi, is a very strong past man.
Yeah.
And as incumbent, he has a lot of plus point, Yeah, he has position, he has resources,
Influence.
Influence, and he has already worked the ground, when he's serving. And at the moment, he's also served as director of MADA. So he has extra point already,
Yeah.
isn't it? And he won with a very beautiful or handsome, what you want to say,
Majority.
isn't it? And then Amanah fielded Latifah, who is, new to that particular area. And of course, even though she said she's Kedahan, but she has to work a lot of, she has to work harder.
Yeah.
And if you look into all Amanah's candidates, women are being fielded in constituency that they lost. PH lost.
Right.
Seriously. So when I checked the seat, I was like, again, women are being put or being placed in a seat that maybe
Challenging.
men do not want actually,
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you look into Aiman Atira, who was placed or named in Sepang, right? Okay. Of all seat that Amanah filed their women, only Sepang is where the seat PH won. We saw Muhammad Hanafi, kan? Muhammad Hanafi won with a very large votes. That's the only seat that in this candidate, they won the seat. But the issue is they filed 3 women against each other. So this is another disadvantage. We lost, and they are all national women chief.
Right.
Yeah. So
okay.
we won. At least we want all these women chief to be there in the Dewan Rakyat, isn't it?
Yep.
And then if you look into DAP, what I sense, DAP tend to file their candidate in their stronghold.
Right.
Yeah. So in a seat that they confirm,
They can win.
Women can
Women
win.
can win.
And if you look into past, they file their women. Yes, they file their women, but in a seat that is very challenging to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not only about the numbers, which they're also
Yeah.
failing,
Yeah.
but it's also about the seats that they allocate to women as well.
Exactly.
The quality of the
The
seats,
quality of the seat, whether
right?
it is
Putrajaya,
winnable seat.
Arau, Tanjung Karang, Sik, places, even Bentong, to be honest, it's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah, a tough fight. Yes.
With Datuk Lai coming back. So, probably. So,
And
these are seats that
muda,
and
you
muda.
mentioned, yeah.
Tanjung
Yeah.
Karang. So it's quite difficult for the women to contest. But before we go into, I'm putting this as like part of a systemic hurdles that women have to go through in order to achieve in politics. But before that, I want to go into 30% as a concept. Meaning, do we still need to, year after year, we keep talking about 30% and we never seem to achieve it. Or even when we achieve it, it's like it feels half-hearted because as Dr. Umu said, women are fielded in unwinnable seats. And maybe what Beaufort MP Datuk Seri Aziz Ahmad Badun said was right, meaning some political leaders or men in power actually regard women as just mere pelengkap. You're not there to help me win the seats. You're just there because, oh yeah, I need to fulfill this 30%. So I want to go to Nurul Ashikin because I remember once you said that, you know, why are we still talking about it? So I want to get your opinion on this 30%. Should we continue talking about it? Should we have a different benchmark next time? What do you think?
So I think when I said that why are we still talking about this, is because I read an article written by Dr. Zuraini that was the guest last week. She mentioned about the conversation about 30% has been there since the 4th cycle of elections, and actually it came out from the 1995 Beijing Action Plan, where it's all about equality of gender. Since Beijing Action Plan, then the whole conversation about 30% come about. And the whole 30% is not like we pluck out of air, you know, 30% is a nice number. No, it's rule of physics, satu, and also it's just like Dr. Umul say last in one of her interview, that's where the social scientists say that when we apply that, you can see actually changes in the society. Having said that, so the numbers is necessary. Changes is not happening. Back to the questions, the numbers itself, the 30%, there are numerous records by OECD, World Bank, by United Nations itself, by Georgetown University, saying that countries that actually implemented 30% see increased participation of women in politics. Actually, it works. Why are we still talking about this is because I am frustrated. Because we have been talking about this. There are forums, summit, political assembly. Every election we talk about this, and we keep talking and talking and talking, and we don't see changes. And I understand my suspicion, and this is my suspicion. This is not backed by science or anything. It's not backed by research.
It's
but
your
my suspicion or observation is because men just does not want to give ways. And Dr. Zaini was correct. You think men want to give away their power? They will not do that. And maybe in this generation of men in power, maybe millennials men are different. Maybe Gen Z men are different. I don't know. Maybe that's when we can see changes happen because maybe the different mindset, there are more empathy, there are more understanding on women's struggles, they are being exposed early enough on there are a lot more conversation on the online space about women's struggles. So maybe there are some kind of understanding there. Maybe there will be changes men on our generation, I hope, or generation after us. So until then, do we stop talking about it? No, we cannot, because if we stop talk about it, but we don't see the changes. Not talk about this lagi lah, tak ada changes. You know what I mean?
There's more to be done. That means there's more to be done.
Yes.
And we need, if you keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, there's a word to describe it, famously by Albert Einstein, correct? So we don't want to keep doing the same thing and then expect that men in power or even the system would change, right? So we're going to move forward and find solutions to this, right? So I want to start with...
I want to add a little bit.
Please.
Let's add a little bit. Have you ever noticed when we do, for example, conferences on women or whatever, everybody in the assembly is women. We talk about to each other. We already know the struggle. We already know what we're going through. We need to include and we need to have men to be our allies to make that move. Otherwise, it's not moving. So it's like preaching to the choir. We know there's a problem. Every year we talk about it and it doesn't change because the people who actually can make the changes is not doing it. That's
and they're not there in the assembly.
No, they're not there.
to listen to it. So just now, Nurul Ashikin mentioned something really interesting, which is about youth, that maybe in the next generation that we might be seeing change.
You're not that patient.
We're not that patient. We can't be patient. We can't just sit on our stools and talk about it in a panel only of women, expecting men to change. But I want to go to Elma because Elma, you've done a lot of work with Sarawak youth, right? So I'm sure in your line of work, working with Sarawak youth, living in Peninsula, when you interact with them and when you do programs with them, do you see that there is a possibility or do you see there's a demand on ground by youth, um, especially female youth, to be represented in politics in the
Well,
context of Sarawak?
Okay, I can say in the context of Sarawak, we do have that because what I think that we need is actually, like the capacity to develop more female talents as our future leaders. And as part of Sarawak Volunteers, we are actively involved in creating activities and programs for the youth, and especially for the Sarawakians who live in Peninsula Malaysia. And recently, we just had our, one of the biggest event, which is held at MyTech Kuala Lumpur. It's called Lan Brambeh Anak Sarawak, where we conducted this event yearly, except for the past 2 years due to COVID. You know that we have like about 205 volunteers, Sarawakians, and these 205 volunteers, they are not only male volunteers. We can see a lot of participations from the female young, who participated in the events as well. So I believe with this sort of platforms that we are creating, we are able to develop more female talents toward, instill their
So
patience.
mentorship, guidance, and
guidance.
experience, right?
Yes.
So we're going to go into that because, as I mentioned earlier, we have quite a lot of new candidates in the next GE, and we might have even more new first-time candidates and young candidates who will be needing grooming and mentoring and helping. And the next question would be: are they receiving it enough, or is the system helping them enough? But before that, let's go for a short break. We'll be back.
It's not about age, because you can have young people who are also corrupt, but I think those who are corrupted should stay out.
Well, I have been in Shah Alam for 3 terms, and currently the party is discussing whether I should still be contesting that seat. I feel that I should make way for a younger candidate, and which we have already worked on, and we've been trying to develop apa yang dikatakan sebagai pelapis lah ya, the second liners to take over.
I think any government that is not one dominant party government, a coalition government, or a kerajaan campuran, kerajaan gabungan, must have some kind of MOU, an internal MOU signed in Parliament to make sure that everybody understands what their roles and responsibilities are. It's when you have parties signing secret protocols, secret agreements, secret letters to each other, and then suddenly you see bits and pieces of it. You hear whispers that this meeting they promised this, they promised that. To me, that is something which we should relegate to the history textbooks.
Hello, welcome back to Relatable with me, Adila Azam, and my 3 amazing guests, Dr. Umu, Nurul Ashikin, and Elma, discussing about 30% women representation in politics, in particular this coming GE15. So earlier we identified some of the problems facing women, female candidates, or even women who aspire to enter into politics and enter into political leadership positions. For example, Ashikin, you mentioned that, in symposiums or debates, men are not included, and it's as if because they're not included in the discussion, they also don't feel the need or have the accountability to do something about it. And still a lot of political parties, I can say, are still patriarchal or headed by a lot of men in positions of power that have almost absolute power. And Dr. Umu, you also mentioned that some women face hardship because they're fielded in unwinnable seats. But I want to go a little bit more into what are some of the other hurdles preventing women from participating in politics, or even like, positioning themselves, volunteering to be, let me be the candidate, let me be the leader of this division. We only see, I think only MCA has a female youth chief that is not divided by gender. It's not a female putri, it's not a putri chief or a pemuda chief. She is the youth chief, and she represents both male and female. And that, for the first time, made people realize that, oh, a woman can lead a male delegation as well in that context. So what are some of the hurdles, Dr. Umur, if you can share from the research that you've done so far?
Okay. Let me share. Recently, I conducted a nationwide study. This study is actually funded by Konrad Adino Stiftung. I found pronounced challenges surface in this study. The first one, which is being said by all respondents, was the gender role. So the gender role that we have is still the traditional gender role, where women has to perform all the domestic duties, and the man is the one who go to the public realm, right? So that gender roles that we can see, that's why women are being burdened, by doing the housework. And this gender role is actually being translated and operationalized and contextualized into the political party. Yeah. So what does it mean? It means that in the party, they still see women as the second-class citizen, if I may say it. They still see women as follower. You are not being looked as the leader. And in some parties' activities, it echoed from Borneo to Peninsular Malaysia. Women are actually asked to visit the pregnant, visit the sick, and then like what you mentioned just now, like baca yasin, kan? Those non-challenging tasks, or we can say not constructing into leadership capacity. All these are given to women. That is one. The gender role from home,
assigned
and from society,
immediately
from
into their
society,
political role,
being contextualized into the political party, and it also impacted the women themselves. They feel, in the study, it revealed that the women themselves feel that they are follower. Although not all, but it quite mainstream, among the women. They feel like, yeah.
Do you think it's because they feel conditioned because of the role that is given to them immediately?
Yeah, you can say that as well, because of the operationalized in the party, because of the culture in the party. Eventually, they feel like, I think men are better. And I also come across that there is challenges of status quo. There is an attempt to challenge the men's status quo by educated women who are in the party, but they face a very fierce resistance from the men who are in the top position. So while we say that there is discrimination, in the political party because of that norms, but I also see that there is an emerging new culture as well coming out from the young women, but it is not very strong.
Yeah.
And we need more of women like this who really brave to challenge the status quo.
Okay.
Yeah. And then can I just relate to your point just now, by having a section, right? So because MCA, they do not have wings, the youth wing are all men and female, and in other political party they have wings.
Yeah.
So this wing also, to a certain extent, can contribute to making women facing difficulties to go up, because of this hierarchical position in the party.
But I love how, for example, in UMNO's history, it was Datuk Sri Azalina who started the Putri Sayap, because she felt that there was not enough representation of female candidates, and there's not enough, there's just no, it's a lot difficult for like a female member of the party to actually scale up and get leadership position, or, learn the ropes of leading the party. And she created sort of like a
pathway,
like a blue ocean. Like she started a pathway of her own to just kind of, give a section. But I think over the years, the function, or even like the taring, the fangs of Puteri UMNO sort of like dull a lot compared to like when she was helming it. There was less. It's a lot. It's not seen as vocal as, let's say, Pemuda in many ways. So but yes, I feel like women also need to create opportunities for themselves. But I also like that, Dr. Umu, you mentioned just now that things are changing, especially among the young generation. And you also mentioned, even, just a little bit that you mentioned that it is also, women themselves who, because of the conditioning or because of societal expectations, maybe regard themselves, less than men. And I want to go into Nurul Ashkin because you have done so much work with female youth on helping them improve their EQ, emotional intelligence, and confidence. Communication skills are, huge parts of EQ. Based on the work that you've done so many years, what are your observations so far when it comes to women who have low insecurity? Is that a big reason why we are not represented more in politics?
Through Project Fearless, since the past 6-7 years, we work with young girls and we identify one of the biggest problem for young girls is actually the confidence level. And it started from home also, for example, the role of young girls has always been, you cannot do a certain thing, you have to be confined in a certain role. Since we're young already, we have a particular role that we have to fit into. And because of that conditioning in not understanding ourselves and our confidence level, then when we go out there in the real world, we bring that mindset and the cultural conditioning and also pressure. Because we I don't know if this is too sensitive. I'm just going to put it out there.
Please do.
We have, as a woman, when we born, we already have a role that we have to fill in. You go to school, you get married, you have kids, you become a mom. This is the ideal. And then when women, because of that, then when we want to do something else, we started to feel, is this the right thing to do? Because we're not fit,
So women doubting themselves.
And then on top of that, I have to fit this role, and I want to go into politics. Can I go into politics? But I want to fit this role. Can I juggle both? And then all of those pressure make it very. If you see in the perspective of women, it become less interesting for me to. Can I balance it both?
Yeah.
While men, it's fine. If I get married, I have my wife taking care of the family. That part I don't have to think about.
So too much hurdles, meaning from all aspects of their lives.
Yes, and to tie it back from your question on the confidence just now, right? Because of this so many roles that we have to fill in, then when we are juggling and we cannot balance both, we started to lose confidence and say, okay, we probably cannot do this. And that's why I think one of the reason.
Okay, that's one of the things, societal expectations on women being, doing domestic work, being the support system to a man or the family. What about in the case of Sarawak as well? Do you go through the same societal expectation? Because I want to talk about Sarawak. I feel Sarawak and Sabah, the representation is more dire than in Peninsula. And do you think the lack of participation among female youth or even female members in politics is attributed to the fact that they don't get to see more women in politics because they only see one minister? Most Sarawakian female only see one state minister in perhaps their lifetimes. Do you think that can be one of the reasons why they don't have the motivation or the push?
I think part of it, the hurdles, yes, it could be that. But then again, it's all about having the right, the right mindset to start them young. That's how we say it. But however, recently when, the state government just launched the machinery for the GE15 for the Pemuda GPS Wanita, even our Premier, Abang Jo, mentioned that it is not impossible that one day Sarawak will have its own first female premier.
Oh,
I think in Sarawak itself, I think I can say that the state government is more supportive towards building more female participations, especially among the young generations.
And a diverse female representation, right? Because Sarawak is very, very diverse.
Yes.
And political representation is quite, I wouldn't say highly, but it is in a way dominated by the Malays.
Yes, yeah.
So other ethnicities also need to be represented.
Yeah, actually, I can say that the Malays, we are actually the minority in Sarawak. But of course, we're focusing more on, like towards, the harmony of the people and also the diversity and all that. And I believe that this year is going to be like interesting overall, seeing how the past, the past elections have changed us. And then I believe this year is going to be more interesting because it's not really about Sarawak overall. It is how Sarawak as part of the state itself can contribute to a better Malaysia and the harmony overall among the whole federal government.
Okay, so a viewer last week who watched the show last week actually told me that she was triggered when Dr. Zarini mentioned that some women need to get their husband's permission to contest in the election, because she said that in real life it goes beyond just getting permission to contest in the election, which is regarded as something that is life-changing. It's big, but even to small things for a lot of women, this is identified by a viewer of ours as being one of the hurdles. So what do you have to say to women with political ambitions who are afraid to chase their dreams? And I'm going to open this question to anyone who wants to take the opportunity to tell women who feel that they are being held back by some people in their vicinity or people that they love from achieving their dreams. What do you have to say? Open floor.
Okay, I am going to again be very frank here. Look,
Please.
I get you. Okay, I come from a place of understanding. When women say that the viewer was triggered because of that, I see that, and I see also women that hold themselves back and not achieving because it's not easy. We are conditioned in a way that when you have husband, there even goes as saying that the heaven is on the feet of your husband. That is not true. But we believe that for so long.
That's what we grow up with, basically.
Exactly. So I can understand it was not easy. However, for me personally, if you believe that you actually can make changes, you can contribute to the society, you can make the world a better place because of your political participation, and this is what you wanted to do, then I would say it's sad that one person is the reason why you don't do that.
But that one person is your husband.
Yeah, I understand that. and this is also, again, I would say that nothing more disappointing for me or disheartening to see women who does not fulfill their potential, women who did not fulfill their dream and aspirations because of something like this. And I also believe that if a person really loves you and understand you and marry you because of your character, which is, I think women who wanted to be in politics do possess a certain character, or fire in them, will not hold you back.
Can I add?
Please.
Have you finished?
No, I'm done.
Okay,
It's going to be an emotional one.
yeah, I mean, I want us to open up our heart, to talk about this. While it is true, like when you wanted to go or to do something, you need to seek your husband permission or your spouse permission. Okay, let me bring you another example, because I think sometimes it has been overly stereotyping. Okay, let me give you the example of Barack Obama. When he was contested as the president, in the US, you know what he saw, what he said. Of all this hurdle I have done, I have the last thing that I need to do, which what? To seek the permission from his wife, to seek the permission from Michelle Obama for him to contest the election. So what I'm saying is, while it's about women, the focus is always on the women, stereotyping, we have to ask permission. But in reality, I believe even the male politician there will be negotiation with the wife. Yeah, because
They need to be.
they need to negotiate, because the first thing that you need to go through is the basic unit of your own family. But maybe some people sensitize this, and then showing that, well, women have to ask permission from the husband. But in reality, or rationally thinking, if you want to contest an election, it is not easy. It's not like going to the central and buy baju, whatever, right? So it is something that you need the whole people to support you. You need the energy, you need the resources. Of course, you need to negotiate with your husband and your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your spouse do not give you the entry, how can you contest? So I think we need to do the new narrative, instead of like packaging in that, like, oh, can minta permission, but try to narrate differently, meaning to say that there is always be negotiating platform for both. Look at Barack Obama as
Just
a
like how
president.
Barack Obama and Michelle
Yeah.
are seen as a partner, a unit.
Yes, a unit
Together,
Yeah. So maybe in that conversation should be, a constructive conversation. I wanted to give you another example. Maybe it's far away lah. Kita Barack Obama tak apalah. Okay, I'll bring you a Malaysian case. Okay. I speak to Datuk Sri Mas Emirati before. She is a very strong lady, right? I mean, so when I talked to her, so I found that there is a very constructive negotiation with the husband, because the husband, to her, play a very huge role in her political life. Like, from her husband will observe, the issue that she speak. He will contribute. Maybe you should focus on this, and the husband will be the most honest, intelligent. Like, okay, maybe you should touch on this. So what I'm looking into this. Maybe the real happening, or what is happening that we see at the moment is that the conversation, the real conversation, the positive conversation is not being highlighted.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we need to
Change the narrative.
Yeah.
Instead
to
of,
change the narrative.
Okay.
permission, it's more like a negotiation and
Conversation.
collaboration.
Collaboration.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna get into that,
Conversation.
but first let's take a short break. We'll come back.
reason why we are with DAP is because DAP also emphasizes on the same values, on the issue of integrity, on the issue of good governance, on the issue of accountability, and we agree. Yeah, on these issues, there is no necessity for us to take into consideration the fact that they are Muslims or they are not Muslims. Because what we want is a government that emphasizes on good governance, whether they are Muslims or they are non-Muslims. What's important is that they agree to govern in the way that Islam preaches.
Hi, my name is Mohaini Mahmood and I'm the co-founder of Kiddo Care. It's natural that people fear what they don't know. You know, back then in 2018 when we first started, we were an online babysitting platform. And it was something so unfamiliar to most people. People are so used to the old model of engaging babysitters, pengasuh, you know. People were used to the idea of a live-in maid, a live-in helper, someone who lives in your household to take care of your children. In 2018, we came up with the idea of, you know, a stranger, another woman coming to your house to take care of your children just for a few hours, and then after the service is done, that person leaves.
My name is Renuka. I'm a working mom. I run a training and coaching business, and I've been a long-term user of Kiddo Care. And I think I'm also like strongly recommending my friends who are also in the same boat as I am, like, you know, business owners who really don't have time. I think this is a very good alternative.
To be frank, it was more emotional to me to hear, what Dr. Umu and Nashikin have to say about, some women feeling that they need to get their husband's permission to contest in the election or even fulfill their political aspiration. And I love that they actually restructure or change the perspective that we have on this matter by saying that it's not permission, but it's a collaboration. And that is one hurdle faced by women. Last week, we also mentioned that women have to sort of fulfill like a mountain of checklists before they can even be considered as a candidate. Now, after they've become a candidate, and let's say they win, they become a minister or an assistant minister, they also face, a different set of hurdle, I might say, when it comes to societal prejudice and societal expectation of women. You mentioned just now earlier that women are expected to be more domesticated when it comes to the roles that they play than men, or in the kitchen, or helping out the sick, knocking on doors, doing gotong royong, arranging for baca Quran dan sebagainya, but not the more policy-centric initiatives. I want to take some examples from like previous administration. For example, Datuk Seri Rina Harun. She made news more about her physical transformation, her fashion sense, her marital gossip than she does for her policies. And you also have, for example, a couple of years ago, Diana Sofia from DAP, who was also at one point a rising star, and then got embroiled in a controversy of her own with a fellow DAP man. And after the controversy, she dropped from politics. We haven't heard from her until now. So do you feel, I'm going to also throw these questions to everybody, but I would love to have Elma's perspective on it as well, because I want to hear whether it's different in Sarawak as well. Whether the societal, the scrutiny that female politicians face, is it attributed to or a consequence of their gender? Because I don't see male politicians getting the same treatment. You have some politicians with active sexual assault cases or past involving sexual assault, even with minorities, and they probably might still be contesting in this GE, but they don't get the same scrutiny like YB now, for example. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, and I'm throwing this to everybody. So Elma, why don't we start with you?
Okay, as we all know that politics is actually a male-dominated field, right? So that's why we need to create more platforms to develop more, confidence among the female leaders. And not only that, personally, I feel that as a woman, we need to be resilient in whatever we do. Of course, there's hurdles. Of course, there's challenges that keeps on coming. But how strong are we to overcome these sort of challenges ourselves? And in order for you to lead the people, right, you have to set like some sort of good examples to the people. And sometimes this sort of challenges comes because of, as a society itself, they want to have confidence in their leaders. And they want, in order for you to instill this sort of confidence, you have to
have a standard.
Yeah, have a set of standard. I know it will be discrimination or something like that. I mean, I don't want to use the word discrimination. I know that in politics, we as a female or the woman itself, we need to work harder, you know. But maybe, hopefully, in the near future, Ashikin mentioned, with the Gen Z or the millennials, the new generations, this sort of, things could change.
So you're saying that it comes with the position itself, meaning being one of the few elected female parliamentarians and then one of the fewer being appointed into the cabinet and helming quite a senior role. It is up to the individual, which is the politician, to show a good example. That's what you're implying.
Yeah, of course.
To take on the responsibility herself.
To take on the responsibility. Of course, we still need the support. I mean, the leader itself is just not like a one-man show, right? They also need to have a set of a good team and a good support as well.
But what happens if every member of that team is male? Then she's going to have quite a distorted I wouldn't say only point of view, but also way of addressing, women issues and representing women correctly.
That's the thing. That's why we need to have a new. We need to start develop the kind of ecosystem where we can train or groom more female leaders,
Like political secretaries,
secretaries and all that.
senior secretaries, press secretaries, and all that. It's also a role that is also dominated by a lot of male politicians, or aspiring politicians, especially young ones. They're put in those positions, sort of like a mentorship, and we don't see a lot of women there. Ashikin, what about you? Societal prejudice.
Okay, you're talking about why when something happened, for example, the case of Rina Harun and also Diana Sofia, the scrutiny is harder on them, while we see male politician has all sort of videos out there, with no repercussion, but
Still going strong.
all sort of videos, whether they admit it or not, doesn't matter. And if that kind of thing happened to women, their political career is over. They're done. They disappeared. In order to be a effective female politician, there should be a balance, apparently. Balance of warmth and competence, meaning that you need to be on your feminine side, but you also need to demonstrate that you are competent. And you also have to be free from any controversial element. But for male politicians, you don't need to be so warm. You just need to be competent, and you will be voted.
Even competence, are we sure that they fulfill the competence?
That's the thing. Like
Debatable.
for women, we have to be warm. We have to appeal to our feminine side. We need to be perceived as, good mothers, a good wife. That's already one box to check to elect her. Is she competent? What did she graduate from? What is her experience?
To scrutinize from every point.
Tick. Okay.
And do you think it's fair?
Does she this? Does she ada controversial whatever? Tak ada. Okay, maybe now we can elect her. But male, competent is enough. Not competent also doesn't matter.
Confidence is
Confident is enough. I personally think it's again. It's not fair. But it is what it is, right? It is how the society is built, and people always say that for women to be elected or to be promoted, we need to work 10 times harder. Men are promoted based on potential. Women are promoted based on
Performance.
track record. So whether it's corporate or politics, it's the same. And I don't think it's fair, but it is what it is. And can we change it? I hope we can, So that's what I think.
Yeah, I would like to add to what Alma and Shikin mentioned just now, right? If we look into what you mentioned, Datuk Rina Harun, well, there are certain things that we agree, but then we forget to look what she and her ministry had done. And if you look into the Ministry of Women, it covers how many groups? Ministry of Women, it covers children, it covers old folks, it covers homeless, it covers disabled group. You imagine you cover the whole nation, the spectrum of
More
a child.
than 50% of the country.
Exactly.
Basically, yeah.
And then we focus on what? On her dress, on her makeup, on whatever it is.
Focus on the wrong thing.
We focus on the wrong thing. So often, female politicians, this is something that I really against, when we know this narrative, we try to have a new narrative. So do not subscribe to this particular practice. So we know that women politicians always experience this discriminative stereotyping. Now what we need to do is to focus on what they have done. Look at the Ministry of Women. They have just passed the Sexual Harassment Act, right? And then now they are revising the Akta Orang Papa, the homeless group. And now they're also looking into the old folks, and they are working non-stop on children. So of all these achievements, so still we are looking at the negative side, isn't it? And look at what happened to Nurul Izzah before. Yeah, even recently she married.
Yeah.
Her marriage. People commenting about her husband instead of looking at what she has done before.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So I think even I'm talking to all of us. I mean, addressing women themselves. Do not subscribe to this particular practice. If we
So
we
women
stop
should
this,
stop
women themselves should
discriminating against other women,
stop.
right?
Yes, and women should start this narrative. If we do not start, then who will do it?
We need to bring a psychologist here as well, I think, because we need to know why there are women out there who actually partake actively in, the act of condemning other women publicly,
Yeah.
and why this is so prevalent in our society as well. Is it something that has to do with how we see ourselves? Like we mentioned a lot, 2 episodes already about how women have insecurity that is sort of planted into us since we're children because of the expectations that's put into us. But I want to go into this is like my second last question very quickly. Who do you think should take the responsibility to change the societal prejudice and gossipy nature against female politicians? Who should be leading the charge to stop this behavior? Who do you think? Who wants to answer?
Dr. Mo.
Okay, I think the women themselves. Because if we don't speak for us, who will speak for?
So we should take
for us?
accountability.
Well, you put it in a very hard way. Women, if we do not want to be treated this way, we need to do it ourselves. Because evidence have shown that women are the strongest advocates for women.
Yeah.
And we feel that this is not correct. This is not the way it should be. So we have to do it. But it is not enough.
Like Ashikin said, you need to bring in the men.
We need to bring in the men. We need to bring the community with us. We need to bring the legislation together. So the ecosystem will be more stronger. Then we can change the narrative.
All right. So my last question quickly is wish list. Everybody's wish list for regarding women's issues, or even like any issues that's close to your heart, in election manifestos that you expect to see, the kind of promises that you think might win your vote in the next GE. So I'll start with you, Elma. Yes.
All right. My wish is like for the next elected government to, to formulate the right policies to empower a young woman to be future leaders. And other than that, of course, they should also focus on female leadership advocacy and empowerment programs. And of course, with the right ecosystem, it has to be developed to ensure that young female school leavers or even universities graduates are given the access to knowledge, skills, and also the network so that they are empowered to want to contribute more towards the nation building and even to the society itself.
Especially when they're young, right? Because you
Yes.
have the drive to contribute to society, but a lot of people might not have the platform for it.
Yes.
So, Nurashikin, what's your wish list?
For my wish list for the next elected government is I really hope for stability for this country, and everything else will come when our country is stable. And I hope for the government to be serious in the cause for women, to pay a lot of attention and to be in the conversation, because we know the next line of leadership will be male anyway. So it's nothing new there. So, but be with us and listen to us and be serious when we actually demand something, not just say, okay, then we're gonna do that, and then you didn't do it. Okay, so that's most importantly is bring back the stability that we as a country deserve, and move forward as and fulfill our potential as a nation. Because as Malaysian, I do believe that there are so many talented women and men in the country, and through stability and keikhlasan, sincerity to build this nation, we actually can fulfill our potential.
All right. In the context of women in politics, I wanted to see more concrete action being taken by the government, because it's too long already. So like we have the 30% policy statement being introduced in 2004. I wanted to see concrete action like what we are seeing now in the corporate sector. We can see that there are visible action being taken, there are budget being given to achieve that. So I wanted to see now in the political aspect, the political leadership, what are the concrete action that they wanted to take, then they should take. The second one, I wanted the government to be more serious and committed on care economy and care policy.
Care economy and care policy.
Yeah, because this is the area where giving a lot of barriers to women to involve in public realms, whether to work or in politics or in other areas. Care work actually emerge as the biggest challenges to women out there. So by committing on this, I believe that women will have a better life, better choice. Yeah, and then like they say, I resonate what they say, to build the nation together.
Yeah.
More stable, more women, better nation.
Okay. And also, what about non-women related issues that you probably have a wish list for the next government? Anything that you want to add? Non-women specific issues, mental health, or do you have
Education.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate in education. So pay a lot of attention on building our youth, especially their confident communication and soft skills. So that is where a lot of work needs to be done. So
Yeah.
that's what
the kind of
mission.
skills that can't be replaced by AI, right?
Yes,
So those are the skills that
human
we need to
skill.
harness.
I don't like the term soft skill, actually. I prefer the term human skills.
Yeah.
So
And
that's-
for Sarawak, other than women representation, what are your other wish lists?
Of course, more on the infrastructure itself.
Infrastructure.
And then other than that, like I wish like the federal institutions to focus more on Sarawak, and not just Sarawak but also Sabah, because we hold like the big state.
Correct. Sabah and
And
Sarawak.
then especially like at the rural areas, and I agree with Ashikin, education is part of it. And like to give more in terms of like bridging the gaps in between the urban and rural,
Yeah.
not just within the Sarawak itself, but the kind of connection and connectivity and also accessibility towards the federal government overall.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to see more integrity, good governance.
Integrity.
Yes.
Okay.
That should be the norms and the culture of the federal government as well as the state government. We wanted to see that. So we can see any policy that we have decided being followed through, monitored,
Indeed.
and we can see the
Integrity.
upward-
Like a nation of integrity. Okay, I think that's really, really important. Thank you so much. I love how that even though we start a little pessimist today, but we end with a lot of hope, a lot of wishes and prayer. So thank you so much, Dr. Umu Atiyah Ahmad Zakwan, Nurul Ashikin Shamsuri, and Elma Safina Zaidi for gracing Relatable with me, Adila Azam, today. Thank you, viewers, for watching the show. You can watch us live on our Facebook, Sinar Daily Mai. And if you missed the live show, you can catch our rerun on YouTube at Sinar Daily Mai. Thank you for watching. I'm Adila Azam. See you next time.